So it is April 1st, 2021, lesson 152, The Power of Decision is My Own. So at this point, we are now making the conscious decision to be present at every single moment. So we wake up, we become present before we do something, when something happens, when someone asks us something. And what you're allowing to do is, it's kind of like the Bible says, it's like be sober-minded, be watchful. So all we're doing is allowing ourselves to be forgiving of the present moments. So the allowing to be takes you beyond the mind and its resistance patterns, okay? It's patterns that creates positive and negative polarities, okay? So when you're living life, you're going through this pendulum thing, and when you're not forgiving of the moment, you're basically going against the currents. You're going through this cause and effect, the karma law, right? And it's an essential aspect of forgiveness to be forgiving of the present moments rather than trying to think of the past, because you can only find yourself in the present and not in the past. If you forgive every moment, allow it to be as it is, there will be no accumulation of resentment that needs to be forgiven at some time later. So that's basically what you're doing when we're releasing, okay? The accumulation of this resentment or this resistance, because if you're in resistance, you're not in forgiveness. And remember, you don't always have to be happy to be at peace. So the emanation of being is this inner peace, the good that has no opposite, right? So you have relinquished resistance, okay? So you can be at peace even though you're not happy, right? Underneath the sadness, you will feel a deep serenity and stillness and sacred presence. So when we were thinking about the echo of the voice of God, there is this underlying doubt, okay, that will always tell you that you can't do any wrong, right? Because now you've crossed over to the other shore. You've mastered the world, if you want to call it that. So when we are looking at resistance, okay, we're looking at our ability to accept. That's forgiveness, okay? Our ability to see how the ego is trying to do things to control, right, defend, or feed the false sense of self, and accept whatever comes to you woven in the pattern of your destiny for what could be more aptly fit for your needs, okay? So sometimes people need to experience a great deal of suffering before they relinquish the resistance and accept, before they will receive the forgiveness, right, the grace of God. As soon as they do, one of the greatest miracles happens, the awakening of being consciousness through what appears as evil, transmutation of suffering into inner peace. So we learned this with Viktor Frankl, especially when he was a Nazi prisoner in World War II. The ultimate effect of all evil and suffering in the world is that it will force humans into realization they are beyond name and form. Thus, what we perceive as evil from our limited perspective is actually part of the higher good that has no opposite, right? So again, everything is perfect the way it's supposed to be because it teaches us to look inside. This, however, does not become true for you except through forgiveness. Until that happens, evil has not been redeemed and therefore remains evil. So that's even similar to how we look at the world. As we see the world, so are we. When we look at the mirrors, right? When we see something that bothers us in someone, that's something that we have to work through and forgive within ourselves. So when we are looking at, sometimes we'll have these emotions, right? They'll be easily identified. Of course, they can be your ag flap, your fear, lust, anger, pride, apathy, shame, guilt, grief, right? And sometimes they're very difficult to discern because we confuse some of our emotions with other emotions. So attention is the key to transformation. Full attention also applies acceptance, okay? So attention is like a beam of light, the focused power of your consciousness that transmutes everything into itself. So we learn that any form of resistance is unconscious. So it's an unconscious relationship or our dysfunctional relationship with the present moment. Okay? So a fully functional organism and emotion is a very short lifespan, right? We've learned that even when we're feeling bad, it lasts about 15 to 20 minutes. So anything beyond that is self-deprecation and self-mutilation in an emotional aspect. So when we're looking at the ripple wave on the surface of your being, okay, right? So we see it as just what the Latin root says, emovere. It's like a moving out of these frequencies, if you want to call it that, join with other emotions of similar frequencies and merge to become the pain body. So it's an accumulation of the experiences that you're witnessing, a parasite that can live inside you for years, feed on your energy, lead to physical illness, and make your life miserable. Okay, so basically, so place your attention on feeling the emotion and check whether your mind is holding onto a grievance pattern, such as blame, self-pity, or resentment that is feeding the emotion. If that is the case, it means that you haven't forgiven. Non-forgiveness is often toward another person or yourself, or it just as well be toward any situation or condition, past, present, or future, that your mind refuses to accept. Yes, there could be non-forgiveness, even with the regard to the future. This is the mind's refusal to accept uncertainty. To accept the future is ultimately beyond its control. Forgiveness is to relinquish your grievance and so let go of grief. It happens naturally once you realize that your grievance serves no purpose except to strengthen a false sense of self. Forgiveness is to offer no resistance to life, to allow life to live through you. The alternatives are pain and suffering, greatly restricted flow of life energy, and many cases of physical disease. The moment you truly forgive, you have reclaimed your power from your mind. Non-forgiveness is the very nature of the mind, just as a mind-made false sense of self. The ego cannot survive without strife or conflict. The mind cannot forgive. Only you can. You become present. You enter your body. You feel vibrance, peace, and stillness that emanate from being. That's why Jesus said, before you enter the temple, forgive. Okay? Presence is a pure consciousness. It has been reclaimed from the mind and the world of form. The inner body is your link with the unmanifested, and the deepest aspect is the unmanifested. Okay, so it is through you and through the world that the unmanifested becomes self-realized. Okay, so when you take back these moments and, before you enter the temple you forgive, you basically allow yourself to have a safe space within yourself because, it's been very difficult for you to accept parts of yourself, and those parts have been trying to express themselves, so you give them the time and day to express themselves so they can integrate back into you. So that's what a lot of plant medicine actually does, because it integrates. It doesn't, eliminate or, make you forget anything. It is the ability to integrate that part that which you don't accept. So being able to, not believe in Jesus, but believe like Jesus and emanate Jesus is allowing you to heal even in the most difficult of times and finding peace in the most difficult of times.